If you're wondering how propaganda actually works in real time, look at what the right wing media machine is doing to Alex Pretti. Within hours following Alex Pretti's murder, right wing pundits began saying the same narrative. This was an assassination attempt. Alex Pretti would have been an assassin if ICE didn't murder him. This is what known dog killer and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem said about Alex Pretti.
When you perpetuate violence against a government because of ideological reasons and for reasons to resist and perpetuate violence, that is the definition of domestic terrorism. This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism. That's the fact.
You heard it from Kristi Noem. Those are the facts on the ground. There's no ambiguity there. There's no room for error. But this is completely inaccurate. We have a video on COURIER where we go over the NRA specifically condemning this language. Alex Pretti had a license to carry in that state. The gun that he had was registered in his name. It was licensed. It was perfectly legal for him to have on him. And he never discharged that weapon towards ICE agents. He did not try to incite violence. And this is the lies that Kristi Noem continues to say. But it's not just Kristi Noem. It's also Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller said, a domestic terrorist tried to assassinate federal law enforcement, and this is your response? You and the state's entire Democratic leadership team have been flaming the flames of insurrection for the singular purpose of stopping the deportation of illegals who invaded the country. Flaming the flames is just funny in and of itself. But he's responding to Amy Klobuchar, who said, Donald Trump and all your lieutenants who ordered this ICE surge watched the horrific video of the killing today. The world is watching. Thousands of citizens stopped and harassed. Local police no longer able to do their work. Kids hiding, schools closed. Get ICE out of Minneapolis now. And Republicans in Congress, stop your silence and stop being complicit. Even on Stephen Miller's bullshit of saying he's a domestic terrorist, Elon Musk's right-wing social media account added a community note that said this is a developing story and there's currently no clear evidence of an attempt to assassinate federal law enforcement or engage in terrorism on the part of the person killed by ICE, with multiple sources. This is a complete lie. But we're seeing that that is the top Trump leadership echoing this propaganda. Those assassination allegations spread fast. It framed the killing not as a tragedy or a use of force incident, but as a heroic defense from the ICE agent to stop terrorism. Those accusations are serious and they carry a lot of legal and moral weight, but they were not supported by any evidence. The media continued to say this lie. This is what popular Republican podcaster Megyn Kelly had to say about this. The same woman who Donald Trump said because she had a period, she was not capable of having critical thought.
I know I'm supposed to feel sorry for Alex Pretti, but I don't. I don't. Do you know why I wasn't shot by Border Patrol this weekend? Because I kept my ass inside and out of their operations. It's very simple. If I felt strongly enough about something the government was doing that I would go out and protest, I would do it peacefully on the sidewalk without interfering via a whistle, via shouting, via my body, via any other way. I would make my objections known by standing there without interfering, because interfering is where you go south. And laying hands on a police officer trying to, or Border Patrol officer or ICE officer trying to conduct a law enforcement operation is a felony. And now you are going to get arrested. And if you do anything that resembles resisting, you're in serious trouble.
So a civilian is killed by a federal agent, and Megyn Kelly's choice is to mock him, saying that she sat her ass at home, basically implying that if you leave your house, that carries an assumed risk of death. Megyn Kelly is not analyzing events. She is normalizing the idea that state violence is acceptable or even deserved if somebody is in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's not political commentary. She is doing conditioning to make this a normal idea in the mind of her audience. But all of these narratives are meant to support the president's decision making. They don't want blame being thrown to the executive in the minds of Trump supporters, which is why they're trying to minimize the harm that is being done by ICE agents. Surely you'd think that Trump is the one calling the shots, right? He's the one who's organizing this propaganda machine. But let's hear what he has to say. He was asked directly, do you think that Alex Pretti was an assassin?
Sir, was Mr. Pretti acting as an assassin? Do you think he was acting as an assassin in Minneapolis?
Who is that?
Mr. Pretti, your deputy chief of staff said that. You don't think so?
With that being said, we can't have guns. We can't walk in with guns.
What about the Second Amendment?
Listen, He can't walk in with guns. You can't do that. But it's just a very unfortunate incident.
It's not funny. I'm not laughing because it's a funny situation. It's just it is wild to watch the president of the United States completely throw his media allies to the curb. The president rejected the very claim that those allies are trying to amplify to take heat off of him. And instead of adjusting, right-wing pundits are just ignoring him. They're not changing their rhetoric because the president said, "Hey, I don't think he's an assassin actually." They're just doubling down, pretending like he didn't say that. And that tells you that this narrative was never about truth. It was always about maintaining outrage, regardless of who contradicted it, and about rage baiting those that are on the other end of the political aisle. While pundits were escalating the narrative, federal agencies were quietly doing something else. According to NPR, the Department of Homeland Security opened an internal review into the narrative of Pretty's death. They found that 2 federal officers who fired their weapons were placed on leave, and federal conduct in Minnesota came under heightened scrutiny. These are not the actions of the administration fully confident in the public story. These are the actions of a government that is responding to public backlash. We know that last Friday was the largest general strike we've seen in Minnesota in nearly a decade. We know that following that, after Alex Pretti was shot, thousands took to the streets to demand justice in their communities, and the federal government is noticing that because these are sparking outrages across the country as well. This is not isolated to Minnesota. We are seeing metropolitan areas like LA, Chicago, Washington, D.C., even places in Florida that are demanding that the government recognize an injustice has taken place against an innocent civilian.
Tonight, under pressure following the shooting death of Alex Pretti, the Trump administration is planning to reduce the number of Border Patrol agents in Minneapolis sometime this week. An administration official and a law enforcement official tell NBC News, while Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino is expected to leave the city tomorrow. All as President Trump now says he's sending border czar Tom Homan to Minnesota tonight, amid a dramatic shift in tone between President Trump and Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz. Following a phone call, both are describing in positive terms. The president saying, "We seem to be on a similar wavelength." This after Walz had slammed the president's crackdown on illegal immigration.
What do we need to do to get these federal agents out of our state?
While the White House tonight still demanding Minnesota allow local police to cooperate with federal immigration officers.
This tragedy occurred as a result of a deliberate and hostile resistance by Democrat leaders in Minnesota.
DHS says officers were trying to arrest a suspect convicted of domestic assault. When we first see Alex Pretti on the scene, in a confrontation with a law enforcement officer holding his cell phone. He's seen again in the street recording when officers ask protesters to move back. Pretti then reaches for an officer who's pushing another protester to the ground, that officer using pepper spray on them. Then we see several officers struggling to get Pretti to the ground. DHS says Pretti had brought with him a 9mm semi-automatic handgun and 2 extra ammunition clips. A split second before the shooting, we see this officer in a gray jacket run out of the scrum with what looks like Pretty's firearm. Just at that moment, in another angle, you can hear someone appearing to yell about a gun. Then the first shot is heard. Officers back away, firing several more shots. Afterwards, you hear someone say, "Where's the gun?"
I got the gun.
An officer says he has it. President Trump saying about the shooting, "I don't like any shooting, but I don't like it when somebody goes into a protest and he's got a very powerful, fully loaded gun with 2 magazines loaded up with bullets also." Police say Pretti had a permit to carry a weapon. This angle of the video showing Pretty's hands shortly before the shooting. One holding a cell phone, the other is empty, contradicting initial comments by Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who said he was brandishing a weapon.
An individual arrived at this scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement.
NBC's Gabe Gutierrez pressing the White House today.
Why did administration officials jump to conclusions before an investigation had even been conducted?
Well, look, this has obviously been a very fluid and fast-moving situation throughout the weekend. As for President Trump, whom I speak for, he has said that he wants to let the investigation continue and let the facts lead in this case.
Camila joins us now live. And Camila, I know you have some new reporting on the investigation into that shooting.
That's right, Tom. The Department of Homeland Security tells us they have multiple officer body cameras that are currently under review. Meanwhile, still a very somber mood here as crowds continue to gather at the site of this memorial.
I went to that memorial, and within 5 hours, they had already built a vigil for Alex Pretti, which again just shows how strong the community is in Minnesota and how willing they are to come out for their neighbors who have clearly been wronged by an authoritarian government. Um, it's so sad to see, and any civil society would recognize this injustice. But we continue to see these right wing pundits completely neglect that and only try to focus on how can they do damage control for a president who's losing favor each day from majority of his population. So Trump, we know, is reshuffling in Minnesota following the backlash from multiple fatal incidents. And he's also notably stuck a positive tone in a phone call with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, which is a sharp contrast from earlier threats and rhetoric from the president. These are signals. It's not that the government's trying to take accountability, but they're trying to do damage control. The White House appears to recognize how angry the entire country is, but right wing media does not get that message. So, why does this continue? Why does Stephen Miller, why does Megyn Kelly, Kristi Noem, why do they continue to contradict the president's own words? It's because outrage is a business model. Labeling Alex Pretti as a terrorist accomplishes two big things. One, it retroactively justifies state violence. And two, it provokes dissent, which fuels clicks, ratings, and loyalty. Accuracy doesn't energize a base. It's not about being precise in your reporting. It's about creating as much conflict as possible. This goes back to tactics that ICE has learned, or the Department of Homeland Security from the IDF. If you justify state violence on civilian populations by retroactively deeming them to be terrorists or threats to the state, you can get away with virtually anything, at least in the mind of your supporters. All of these sources point to a very clear pattern in right wing media. Right wing pundits escalate before the facts are known. Contradictions are ignored even from the President of the United States. Blame is shifted onto those that are killed or the associates of those that are killed, and accountability is treated as weakness. Deny, deny, deny. We can reshuffle leadership, but we will never take full responsibility. That's not a mistake from the Trump administration's part. That is their strategy. Because when the facts no longer serve power, the lie becomes louder. And right now, they are yelling. We know that public pressure and these demonstrations are working because the two Border Patrol agents who fired shots in the Alex Pretti shooting have been put on administrative leave, according to the Department of Homeland Security spokesperson, Tricia McLaughlin. A preliminary DHS report sent to Congress detailing Pretty's killing on Saturday said two officers fired their weapons during the struggle, but did not confirm claims from federal officials that he was brandishing a gun. President Donald Trump said this week that he would reshuffle his immigration operation and widespread backlash to the killings, amid widespread backlash to the killing of Pretti and Renee Good. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Border Czar Tom Homan met yesterday and agreed on the need for an ongoing dialogue and will continue working toward those goals, according to the governor's office. Homan also met with Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry. A man who confronted Representative Ilhan Omar at a Minnesota town hall yesterday, tried to spray her with the substance, was arrested and placed in police custody. Those are the biggest facts right now from Minneapolis, but we know that this public pressure is working.